So my name is Venice Sterling. I work for Aetna, a CVS health company, and I am a program manager for diversity and talent acquisition. So we're a healthcare organization, and well, the Aetna side is both are healthcare organizations. On the Aetna side, we're more insurance, and on the CVS side, we have more of the retail piece. But both companies, before they combined, and even now, we have that back end piece. So that would be the human resources, the finance, the purchasing, all of that great stuff. So we have a number of different positions and openings and going ons about the company.
Great, thank you. And could you give an overview of, what work is performed at your company? What do you do both in Aetna and then the larger kind of CVS corporation?
In my role, what I do is I am focused on getting more people of color and more women into the organization. So I work on a team of three. I am responsible for people of color and women. I have a colleague who's responsible for individuals with disability and another colleague who's responsible for veterans and military spouse. Throughout the company, we have roles, as I mentioned earlier, in finance. We have roles in human resources, which is where I am. We have roles in communication. We have roles on the retail side, so in the stores, or not even directly in the stores, but also those who support the stores. So you might not be working on the sales floor, but you might be working in the background to make sure that all of the pieces that are needed for the store are there. And those individuals would be considered full-time employees, but they're on the retail side of things. We also have pharmacists, we have nurses, we have a lot of people. We have folks that do the insurance on our side, Medicare, Medicaid, all of that good stuff. So we have a lot of different opportunities here.
Great, thank you. And when you are, hiring new employees, what do you look for both in their kind of career and educational background and also soft skills?
So in terms of education, it's really going to depend on the type of role that you're looking for. In addition to the education, previous work experience is always a plus, but we understand that you might not always have that if you're coming directly out of school. So what we suggest is if you can get an internship, that would be helpful. Whether it's an internship within the organization or internship external to the organization, that's good. We also have a lot of people who will start, for example, if they're going into school. I know I've spoken to a lot of my colleagues, especially on the CVS side. If they're going to school, they'll start working in the stores while they're in school and kind of work their way up through that from the company. So I do know one individual who she started working in the stores while she was going to school. And now she is working with our colleague resource groups in our diversity program. So she's been with the company for a number of years, but she has literally worked her way from the bottom, and now she is in an amazing position. She absolutely loved the company, so she's a great testament. But in addition to getting some internships, if you haven't already, or being able to work in the stores and working your way up, if you have some experiences, that will help you as well. In terms of soft skills, what we're looking for are people who are going to be good team players. And I know that every company is saying that, but it's true. It's because it's important. We want people who are going to be able to work with their colleagues. We also want people who are going to be able to work on their own if it's a role that requires you to kind of be self-motivated. So having self-motivation is also key. Being able to see things from someone else's perspective is going to be super important, because that is one of the models that we're following here at CVS, walking in each other's shoes. So being able to see things from the customer's perspective. So a lot of people, because CVS is such a well-known brand, there's literally a CVS on almost every corner. So imagine yourself as a customer going into our stores. What does that look like? How would you want someone to treat you? That's what we want people coming in thinking. If I was a customer, how would I want someone to treat me? Regardless of where you're working in the organization. I work in human resources and I work in talent acquisition, but I always also have to think, how would I want to be treated if I was a candidate, if I were a candidate and I was looking for a role here? So always putting yourself in the customer's shoes, always putting yourself in another employee's shoes to help get through the day-to-day stuff that we have to do. Being able to network, I think, is a great thing as well that you can bring into the company, the soft skill that you can have. These are things that we sometimes learn in school, but not always. It just depends on what kind of courses you're taking. But I will strongly suggest that if you have not practiced your networking, that you that. And I say this not because it's only going to get you a job within the company if you can get through the interview process, but in addition, once you're in the company, we don't stay in our silos. So I know TA is one that we would have to work with a bunch of groups anyways, but I work with finance and they also work with other parts of the organization. Once you're in the company, chances are you're going to be working with other people throughout the organization. So knowing how to network, knowing how to build those connections, and then being able to take what you're learning and apply it to your role is also going to be very important. Not to mention, if you're in the company, chances are you're going to want to know what else is going on. And if you're able to network, you can see positions that are open. And this is just going to help you be able to move within the company so you're not staying stagnant in the position that you're in if your goal is to move around.
And I know kind of COVID throws a whole wrench into this question, but what's the outlook for, entry level positions within the company?
That is a great question. And I will say you're absolutely correct. COVID has impacted this for a lot of companies. But for CVS, we were one of the few companies that didn't have to do a huge layoff. In fact, we worked with other organizations to try and get their colleagues or their employees who were furloughed or laid off to come get a job with CVS. So entry level positions, I would say that we're looking very good. That does make it a lot tougher, however, because now we have so many more people who are out of work and so many more people who are looking for these entry level positions that it is getting a little bit harder, but we do have them open. Some of the best things that you can do is be patient. And I know that's hard to say, and I know that's even harder to do, but it's okay to look for those entry level positions. You might have a degree in one thing and you don't see a job for that very specific thing, but your degree is transferable to something else. That's okay. Apply for those roles. And then once you're in the company, it'll be a little bit easier, actually a lot easier to navigate your way around. So I would say that we have a pretty good outlook for the entry level roles that we have, whether it's within the stores or whether it's in the corporate setting and those entry level positions there. In addition to that, because we are now connected as CVS and Aetna, we have a lot of customer service roles open as well, which will also be more entry level. I know a lot of people often look at those roles and they're saying, oh, I don't want to be in those roles, but those are also one of the good roles to start off in because then you can very quickly move yourself out of that. I've heard of people who have been in those roles, they've stayed in them for about a year or so, and then they transitioned into a new role. Those are great places to start. In the corporate offices, will also have entry-level positions that don't require a bachelor's or a master's, but rather it'll require a high school degree or an associate's degree, and then some work experience if you have any work experience, or if you have some internship experience, that helps as well.
Speaking of entry level and starting off in a career, excuse me, could you speak about what your own early experiences were for internships, entry level stuff? How did you get to where you are now?
Sure, that's a great question. So for me, and I know that this is for the Rhode Island people, so maybe it'll sound familiar to you, but I grew up in Hartford, Connecticut, which is very inner city. Um, Depending on where you are in Rhode Island, you could see some similarities there. So I grew up in inner city. I went to a very, very tiny high school. Our graduating class was, I think, 66 people. So it was very small. And then I went to this massive university. I went to UConn. Um, it was difficult, I will say that. But what I did while I was at UConn is I found mentors. And I always suggest that people find mentors. And even if they can't officially be your mentor, you can still learn something from them just by interacting and networking with them. So I found mentors who were able to help point me in the right direction. I was able to, through these mentors and through the programs that I was a part of at UConn, I was able to gain some internships. And I also got myself involved in other programs that would help me find internships, because as a college student, that's something that's very hard to do. And I completely understand that. So I suggest that you look to see what programs are there and available to you. For me, it was Inroads. Things have changed a lot, but I do know that this program is available in Rhode Island. It was Inroads. So that's a program that's pretty much geared towards inner city students. The areas that they're looking for will vary. So that's something, unfortunately, that you'll have to look into, but they will help you find internships in local organizations. So I was able to do a couple internships before I graduated to give me the experience that I would need to be able to go into a full-time role. And those internships helped me determine what I wanted to do after I graduated. I know that there are a number of other programs out there, so I suggest that you do your research to see what's available on your campus. And don't be shy. If you are someone who doesn't like to talk a lot, doesn't like to be in the front of the room, I would recommend that you take a class in public speaking. That is what I did. I was a nervous wreck when I first started. I hated speaking in front of people. It was just not a strong suit for me. And through the guidance of mentors, they suggested that I take a class that would help with my public speaking. And I did. And I learned so much. And now I'm a lot more comfortable. I do not run crying anymore. I used to do that. so growth experience is there. But for me, I took the class on public speaking to help me be more comfortable speaking in front of people, help me learn how to network a lot more. I took on events and in organization that required that I use the public speaking skills that I was learning. And I partnered with organizations that would help me find internships. Finding interns, not interns, I'm sorry, I meant mentors. I found a couple mentors to help guide me through the process because I really just didn't know. People that will help me figure out the right way to dress, who to connect with, how to approach people if I have questions. Those things are always helpful for me. And then, like I said, don't be afraid to jump into a role that might not be exactly what you went to school for. So I actually went to school for industrial organizational psychology. And I know that if you think about it very much, it is kind of aligned to HR. It's actually really aligned to HR. But I started off at a university, and that was the first job that I had out of college. It wasn't paying what I thought I should be making because I went to a 4-year school and I shouldn't be making more than this. But that experience I would never change for the world because it was a learning experience for me. I started working at a university. Everyone there was amazing. And on top of that, I was able to go back to school because it was something that university covered. So I say that for you to think outside the box. It's okay to want to go to a corporate company, but it's also okay to take those smaller jobs or jobs in those smaller organizations, such as universities, such as private companies, such as nonprofits, to kind of help build your resume. Those things, those skills that you will learn will be transferable. And I say this because if you're looking for entry-level job, chances are you're going to be doing a lot more than you would be doing if you were to get the role that you were actually looking for, because the skills you would need to learn will help you to connect with a number of different people. So at a university, I learned how to connect with faculty, I learned how to connect with students, and I learned how to connect with staff. On top of that, because the university was so small, the things that I learned there in HR, I was able to transfer to the skills that I'm using here at a corporate office. I was able to do more there because we were so small. I was able to touch more pieces. I was more of a generalist versus in my role now, I am more of a specialized person where I specialize on a certain thing. So I just want people to keep that in mind as well. You'd be surprised the skills and the knowledge that you can learn from trying something different and then working your way to where you want to be.
Great, thank you. And I think this last question, you probably touched on your answer in the last one. But what advice would you have for current CCRI students that would like to join either CVS or kind of get into that same sort of field?
Sure. So for anyone who would like to join CVS or get into HR or just any field in general, the advice that I would have is networking. And I've been in the working worlds for a little bit now. It hasn't been that long, and I won't tell you how long. But the one thing that I consistently learn, and the one thing that is consistently being told to me is to network and to talk to people that are in the roles that you're thinking about going into so you can understand exactly what it is you're looking to get into. I know even now as I'm in CVS and I'm looking at roles that we have open across the company, I try to do some informational job interviews. So I'll reach out to someone that is currently in that role and I'll just ask them, is it okay if I interview you to learn more about your role? Is it okay if I job shadow you just so I can see what your day-to-day looks like? So I would suggest that as well. Right now with the current economy the way it is very tough and difficult to get into companies. But if you can do something like a job shadow or just connecting with someone and learning more about their role, now your name is in their head. And when they have roles open on their teams, they're thinking, oh, I job shadow with this person, or this person reached out to me just to learn more. So you give yourself a leg up in that way. I would also say take some time to network with people that are not only in the company, but in the field in general. So if you're looking to get into HR, talk to other people who work in HR. They'll be able to help you. If you're looking to get into HR in CVS, but you don't know anyone in CVS, you can start with someone that works in HR at the local university where you work, or you can look on LinkedIn to see who you might have in your network that either works at CVS or they may know someone who works at CVS. Sometimes you just have to take a little bit of a curvier road to get there, but eventually you will get there, and it's just a matter of being patient. I would also say be open to the possibilities of what could be out there for you. So I know that you might want to get into CVS Health in a very specific role. That role isn't open. I think I mentioned this earlier. That role might not be open, but another role might be open on the same team. It's okay to go after that role and talk about how the skills you have will transfer to that role as well. And for those who are applying for roles and get interviews, if you are going through the interview phase, do your research. Nothing looks better than someone who comes prepared for the interview. Do your research for the position that you're in, do your research for the company. Always come prepared with questions. If you have the questions written down, that's fantastic. If you don't have them written down, make sure you know what they are in your head. I cannot stress that enough. Interviews are important because the company is looking to see if they want to hire you, but they're also important because you're looking to see if you actually fit into the culture and you want to work for the company. So ask those questions. What's the culture like? Tell me about your day to day. Ask the interviewer personally, what are some things that you personally like about the company and why? So you can understand if it's going to be the right fit for you as well.